Hello and welcome you all. So in this today's video we are going to see about how we can use and utilize the VPC endpoint. So let me give you the brief idea about the VPC endpoint. So VPC endpoint enables you to privately connect your VPC to supported AWS services and VPC endpoint services powered by AWS PrivateLink without requiring an internet gateway. So we'll see in this video about how we can utilize this VPC endpoint to reduce our NAT gateway network ingestion. VPC endpoint can also be used, for example, you are working with a firm, so this is your client and you want to access some of the services of the client, for example database. There are many services are available. You can go ahead and you can just check the tutorials. Now as a owner I want to access these services. Okay, so this is my own service. So in this scenario VPC endpoint plays a vital role, which will create a private link between the two of the requester as well as the acceptor. We will check on the demo side. I'll show you on the demo side. So what it will do, it will create the private connection between the two of the service name. There you will check the service name, and where we can directly access the resources or the services for the next client account. So as per the AWS, they take this AWS VPC endpoint as a backbone network. Okay, so whenever any request comes from this VPC, they will check out about the endpoint name, and if in case if this service is there, then it will transfer that to the particular account. So this is one of the use case of the VPC endpoint, but in this video we are going to see about how we can use this VPC endpoint to reduce our NAT gateway network ingestion time. So in this diagram, if you just check, as I already had provided you all of these resources, if you haven't watched that video, please go and watch it so that you will understand what is private, what is public, what is NAT gateway, internet gateway, and all these things. If my private subnet, okay, I'm just giving you the one example. Let's say my container, okay, let's say my container wants to send some logs to the CloudWatch. Now in this scenario what it will do, so as my container, as my service is in the private subnet, I will have to use the NAT gateway because there is no VPC endpoint setup is there. So what it will do, it will transfer my data from the NAT gateway to the internet, from internet to CloudWatch. Now let's say you want to if you want to upload the file, so this is also the same way. Now to reduce this cost, what AWS has introduced the VPC endpoint. Okay, so this VPC endpoint can be easily used to reduce the cost, where if you just check that turnaround time was to get into the NAT gateway from it will translate it to the public, and then it will come back and it will upload your things to any of the AWS services. But by use of the VPC endpoint, what it will do, without using the NAT gateway, my container, my application can directly go and upload to the CloudWatch, upload to the S3 bucket with the use of gateway and interface endpoint. So we'll check it onto the next demo side, how we can configure the interface and the gateway endpoint. But the idea is that to reduce the turnaround time, to reduce the network. So here if you just check, there is no network ingestion, there is no network transfer, data transfer cost of NAT gateway, so that we can use the VPC endpoint, which is a readily available feature of the AWS. The another thing that I had already mentioned, you can use this VPC endpoint as a private link so you can use it for the multi-SaaS application. Now we'll check on the demo side how we can configure the VPC endpoint. So for that you just have to go inside the VPC dashboard. Inside the left hand side you will see the endpoints and the endpoint services. Now these endpoint services that I was talking about, these endpoint services you can create, and you can give this endpoint service name to different client or to different person who wants to use your AWS resources. Now I'm not doing it for now. I'll just go and go for the endpoints. Now to create an endpoint you will have to go inside the VPC. On the left hand side there will see the endpoints, create endpoint. I'll just add the endpoint name. Now here if you just check, there are service category. We can use the service category. Now the private link ready partner service is where we want to access the services of other AWS account or a client. There are marketplace services also. There are the other endpoint services. Now we'll just go ahead and use for the services. If you just check, there are two types of endpoint. One is the gateway endpoint and one is the gateway VPC endpoint, and the second one is the interface VPC endpoint. So I'll just choose for the S3. S3 endpoint. I'll have to, so once you check the S3 endpoint, you will have to select the VPC and the specified route table. Full access I will have to give, create endpoint. Now whenever I want to access to any of the S3 bucket from the VPC, what it will do, it will always goes my traffic from the VPC endpoint. The same we can create this VPC endpoint for CloudWatch Logs. AWS service nodes. Okay, so create an endpoint. Before the once you choose this interface, you will have to select the VPC, select the subnet. Inside the additional setting you can select the subnet, but it is, you can select the private or public, because it's a VPC endpoint is a primarily onto the VPC, so it doesn't matter how we are going to check it from the subnet. So better you choose the private subnet only to reduce the cost. The security group also you can create a new security and use. I'm just using it for the default and the full access. So this is also one of the error that you can get, because while creating the VPC you must have enabled the DNS hostname and DNS. While creating the VPC, we should enable the DNS hostnames and DNS resolution. If you just check, the DNS hostname is disabled. Now what I will have to do, I will have to edit the VPC settings and enable DNS hostnames, so that whenever my application wants to put something inside the CloudWatch Logs, okay, so what my VPC endpoint can check, this is my endpoint, figure the VPC endpoint for the same. So instead of going from the NAT gateway, we can directly use and put our logs into the CloudWatch Logs. This is how we can create the VPC endpoint to reduce the cost, and also in case if you want to use the VPC endpoint services also is there that you can use for the partner ready services. So go ahead and delete the VPC endpoint. Action, delete VPC endpoints. Okay, this is how we can set up the endpoints. So keep learning, keep growing, be a cloud Premi always. Thank you.